It gives me great pleasure to bring on board Anish Shah, Group CFO of Mahindra and Mahindra Group. Anish, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. We missed you on the budget day yesterday.
Yes, good afternoon, Nikunj. I was in Rajasthan for a good part of the day at a very important event that FICCI had called Stone Mart.
Well, but today we want to just first address the thought behind why there has been a big change at the management level. And typically, from a market standpoint, if a news which hits the exchanges, the CFO of NMN has moved on. Now, that's something which will get everybody thinking. Let's understand the thought behind it. What is the internal thought behind it?
So the thought behind it is really grooming all our leaders for bigger roles, for bigger careers. It's something that we've been doing for a while. We've accelerated that 3 years ago. We put in place some marquee talent development programs. One is Future Shapers. The second is Mahindra Accelerated Leadership Track. And more important than that, we've been planning careers for folks to give them broader responsibilities, to give them bigger things to do. A number of our finance talent had a question of, can CFOs run businesses? And our answer has been yes. If you're very good at what you do, you can have a career that you'd like. And in that context, we have appointed a group CFO as CEO of Mahindra Holidays, a business which has tremendous potential, one that we are planning to grow 5x over the next 5 to 7 years, possibly even faster. And it's therefore a very exciting role. And it allows for another very strong leader to come in as Group CFO. And in addition to these changes, we also have moved another 3 or 4 leaders internally into bigger roles. And that's part of our leadership development process.
Anish, the fact that Manoj will now be the CEO of Mahindra Holidays, it is the CFO who's moved to a CEO role. And that rarely happens, right?
We feel that if you've done well in what you do, then you deserve to have a career path that is based on your aspirations. And that's something that we've seen in a number of leaders who've done well, who excelled in things that they've done, and they've gone on to do even bigger and better things outside the comfort zone. So therefore, if we want a strong talent bench, we've got to take people outside the comfort zones, be able to do more. In Manoj's case, he's a seasoned leader. He's helped drive a lot of growth at Tech Mahindra in the past. At the group CFO level, he's helped stabilize a number of things that we had to stabilize over the last 3 years, and has put the group in a fantastic shape. And it is a great pride for us to be able to see him go on and take on a role as CEO of Mahindra Holidays, where we've got to take that business to a very fast growth trajectory. Again, a lot of good work has been done in that business by Kavinder, so I would give him a lot of credit for that. He's put that business on a solid growth path, has built a very strong team, and therefore it's one that is really poised for significant growth. And I think Manoj is a great leader who can take that and make that happen.
Anish, allow me to take the clock back. And when you took over as CEO of Mahindra and Mahindra, you started changing the capital architecture of the company. You started revisiting group level companies and you started making changes both in terms of personnel and with capital allocation. So can I say that Mahindra Holidays, even though it's a short, solid, strong brand, the fact that Manoj is now going to be taking over as CEO, that means that this company in a sense has got a different plan in terms of growth avatar, and suddenly this is a business which will occupy center stage for the Mahindra group.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's the reason why we have one of our senior most leaders going there, because it's a business that has tremendous potential. The demand is very, very strong. We have demonstrated the ability to deliver wonderful vacations, and all our members.
Could add a multiplier to the GDP. Is that an indirect commitment coming from the Mahindra group as well on those lines?
It is a very direct commitment. We plan to grow our resorts at least 3x. We would likely grow them even faster. And it is an area that we are very bullish on. Tourism in India is going to grow dramatically. Uh, Supply is not very strong today. And this is a business that is very well positioned to take advantage of this trend. And to be able to build on the very strong foundation that we have in this business. So yes, it is a very direct commitment.
Bit more about Mr. Amarjeet Barwa. What experience does he bring on board? And is there anything differently which he would do as CFO which Manoj did not did?
So Amar is one of the strongest finance leaders I've seen. He comes with a very strong background in finance and a very strong international experience as well. And he is one that will continue to take forward everything that Manoj has put in place with regard to capital allocation. That discipline will continue to stay, but also play a key role in driving exponential growth for the group. Because having built a strong foundation, we are now looking at exponential growth in multiple areas. And the CFO is obviously a key part of that. And that's what Amar will bring to this role.
Uh, have to ask you a question on budget, something which we missed getting from you. Should I ask you a question in the FICCI capacity or the M&M capacity?
You can ask in the FICCI capacity, but before we close M&M, I would just like to add that for us, we want to make M&M the place that is the best place for talent. We have been able to attract wonderful talent over the last many years from all the top companies around the world. And the grooming process we have, the development process we have, the taking bets on people, putting them in roles that are great roles for them, career pathing that we've done so far. I think will make M&M the place for talent as we go forward.
Summarize just the M&M part of today's news, and I'm just going to summarize it. And please interrupt if I'm summarizing it incorrectly. The message from Mahindra and Group on the change of CFO is that look, this is an internal rejig. It is in sync with talent reorientation. This is a planned exit, and there is nothing forceful about it. Can I summarize that?
That is exactly right. And the set of moves that we didn't talk about so far are also that our CFO from Life Spaces moves to the CFO role in Holidays. Our CFO from Sustain, which is a solar business, which again has done extremely well, and we launched India's largest renewables InvIT with Avinash's leadership. So Avinash moves to CFO of Life Spaces, and we have a very strong internal leader identified who we will announce shortly as CFO for Sustain. So there are other moves as well we have from a talent.
Mahindra, an external change has happened. Is there any internal recalibration that there are going to be some external changes which could happen, which is worth work on progress, or the current top team is going to pretty much remain status quo in terms of your top companies?
We have made all the main changes that are required. And our focus right now is on grooming and developing talent we have internally. So over the next few years, as senior roles open up or as businesses expand and we get into a much bigger footprint, we have all the talent that we need internally. So we have hired some very, very strong people at various levels in the organization over the past few years. And our goal is to reduce external hiring as much as we can and groom internal leaders to be able to take roles across the organization.
Fair point. You want to make Mahindra Group as the best place for talent. That's the message coming from Anish Shah, Group CEO and Managing Director in Mahindra and Mahindra. Anish, now on the budget. Now, if one looks at historical vote on accounts, they've been dominated by one word, which is compulsions of elections and populism. That was missing yesterday. I never thought as a member of press, I'm accustomed to ask questions that, why there was so much of an populism bent. This time, I think we are trying to understand that why there is no populism bent.
And that to me is really the beauty of this budget because it is one that focuses on economics and not on politics. And that is consistent with what we've seen in the last few budgets as well. And which is why I would give very strong marks to the government in terms of driving economics, the growth in capex, the focus on inclusive growth, the focus on green in terms of climate change. All of these are things required for the country long term. And this is a budget that's really looking at the long term for India to make sure India becomes a global leader in line with the Viksit Bharat goals that the Prime Minister has outlined. So, all in all, you're absolutely right that it does not have the sops that one would expect in an election year. And that to me is the biggest positive that comes out of the budget is a very strong long-term growth focused budget.
Government is looking at reducing the capital expenditure. largely because of base effect. It is also an indication that private sector capex is now looking strong. 3 years ago, that was the missing link. But can one confidently say that if government actually reduces their commitment towards expenditure, the private sector is going to take care of it and there will be no effect on the economy per se?
So first, in context, if you look back over the longer term, 11% growth in capex is still a very solid growth. Yes, we've seen a couple of years where it was even higher than that, but that was required for the economy at that point in time. And it is up to the private sector now because the private sector has to step up. The economy is doing well. There is a strong demand. Capacity utilization has been increasing across multiple industries. And the balance sheets of various companies are fairly strong. So the private sector will step up because we are seeing that growth. Manufacturing in India will grow 16 times if we have to meet the goals of Viksit Bharat, which I'm confident we will. And for that to happen, a lot more investment will come in. So I think this is a very good balance. And again, 11% is a very good place to be from a capex growth standpoint. But the government can't do all. The private sector has to step up and do its share.
Last question, Anish. The rural economy has not recovered, and that is something which is a concern. While 20% of Indians account for 80% of consumption, there is 80% will still account for 20% of the consumption. That's how the pyramid of India is. For that 80% which account for 20%, do you think something should have been done in terms of an indirect, not subsidy, but indirect schemes or indirect SOP?
So if I start with looking at the tractor industry, which is a barometer of rural India, if you look at it for the last 3 years, the tractor industry has actually grown extremely well. It grew 27% in the first year after COVID. And this year, it will be flat to negative 5%. But for us, a particular quarter or a particular year is not something you could just focus on and draw conclusions from. You've got to look at a slightly longer term period. So we don't believe that farm is hurting or rural India is hurting. We feel it's in a solid shape. It has had a year with low rainfall where some crops had not come out very well. The Rabi crop is coming up very well based on all the indications we see. And despite a fairly tough year, the rural India was fairly resilient. So we're not looking at it as something's wrong there or something's off. We feel it's resilient. We feel that it will continue to grow well.
Share an anecdote with you, Anish, and then we'll wrap. And the SUV market share, which is growing, and you are the leader there. And in the morning today, just a coincidence, I was counting on my house to office how many Thars and how many XUV 500 I saw. And that was actually more than 50%. So I'm reasonably confident that the market share what Mahindra has, it's here to stay. And more than 50%, I'm sure I would see more Thars and more XUVs every morning when I commute to office.
Yes, and hopefully you and others will start soon counting how many Thars and XCV 700s and Scorpions we don't see, because that may be an easier count sometime in future.
So, but I'm still not using an SUV. So maybe next time when we meet, we'll talk about it.
That's good.
Appreciate your time. Thank you so very much. We've extended our interview time with you, but you've been very gracious with your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nikhil. Bye.